Hello.
Hi.
Here we go. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Super excited to have the opportunity to talk to, as Mike correctly said, some of the most premium publishers around, but also with Nicky from PubMatic. So I just want to quickly introduce who we have today. We have Anthony Crocker, who is the Director of Commercial Success Strategy at the Telegraph. We have Campbell, who is a product manager at the FT, and Nicky Spooner, who is Senior Director of EMEA Ad Solutions at PubMatic. And today, what we really want to talk about is how publishers can take advantage of attention metrics as it pertains to media quality. How can they justify the value of their inventory and ultimately drive better outcomes for their clients using attention? So I'm going to be moderating the panel today. I'm Ed Bristow. I'm our UK Commercial Director. And Adelaide, if you don't know us, are a media quality company. We use attention metrics to help determine media that's most likely to drive a positive outcome for brands. So with brief intros out of the way, I want to get into a little bit more interesting detail and ask these guys for their advice because they're the experts. And so perhaps I'll start with you, Anthony. What I wanted to start with was I'd love to hear how you became interested in attention metrics and why, in particular, the Telegraph is interested in this topic.
For us, attention metrics really became a critical kind of focus for us when we launched our sub-strategy in 2018. And a big part of that was the overhaul of our digital experience. So we really rethought how our advertising sat alongside our editorial and the relationship that those two things had with each other, which meant stripping away some of the more intrusive formats, getting rid of things like overlays, pop-ups. We took away skins and reduced the ad ratio. So actually now we have an ad ratio of 1 per screen as a kind of critical rule of thumb. And then we realized very quickly that historically we had potentially been leaning on some kind of gamification of those attention metrics. So we'd driven things like awareness, not necessarily through positive engagement with our readers. And so we had to rethink the language that we used, the way that we demonstrated that we were delivering quality, and the way that we could demonstrate that actually that was working for our customers as well. So, we looked at attention metrics as a way of kind of hygiene factors that we can ensure that we were delivering a quality experience, but actually was another critical part that was bringing in things like brand uplift, to demonstrate that actually the business objectives are your ultimate goals, that the attention metrics are there for optimization, learning, and demonstrating that you're doing the very best you can as a publisher to deliver a quality experience. Absolutely critical to that narrative for us.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think attention's an input, it's not the outcome. The outcome is what the brands actually care about. And Nicky, I'd love to. PubMatic have been an excellent partner of ours, and we've worked together for multiple years. But I'd love to hear from you how and why PubMatic got interested in this topic about attention metrics.
Yeah, of course. So I think attention is another great way of us understanding what engagement looks like on our campaigns and the type of engagement that we're seeing. We've been able to build out attention marketplaces globally, using partners like Adelaide, so that it's really easy for the buyers that we work with to be able to tap into the opportunity that attention brings to the table whenever they need to use it. We've seen real success in a number of markets now using that kind of setup.
Makes complete sense. And same question to you, Lee. I know I used to work for Moat and work very closely with the FT. Obviously, sad news about Moat, but I know that you were one of the earliest adopters of this principle of attention. So I think you guys were experimenting with a cost per hour model back in 2015. So I'd love to hear kind of a little bit more about that journey and kind of what the FT went through and where you are today in terms of your interest and use of attention metrics.
Yeah, definitely. So, back in 2015, the FT kind of pioneered this cost per hour model, as you mentioned, and it was kind of, it was about not only looking at if an ad was seen, but actually, for how long. And I think this really resonated with marketeers at the time who were kind of looking for more than just impressions, right? They were looking kind of for brand uplift and so on. And I think we believed, and still do now, that, if you can deliver kind of genuine attention, like, an hour with our influential C-suite audience, that's actually a much better gauge of kind of impact than something like clicks, for instance. And so, I think for us that was actually proved out by the CPH model. We've seen, I think the kind of guarantee under CPH was we deliver at least 5 seconds of kind of view time on the ad, and that resulted in something like 50% brand uplift for those using that metric. And I think, so that was a huge success, but I think the reason we kind of went away from it was we're actually one of the only people kind of doing it in market, and that becomes difficult as, clients want to compare across channels and so on. And then there's a lot of stuff around the move to mobile that made it kind of technically challenging too. And so I think that's why we're really excited about the rise of attention metrics in market now. And also, partners like Adelaide, for instance, who kind of solve some of those problems for us around, more sophisticated probabilistic attention models, third-party verification, and that kind of omni-channel measurement. So I think, we're kind of excited to be back to the future.
Yeah, we're excited too. It's an exciting time. Cool. So, Nicky, but perhaps one for you. Obviously, PubMatic have been a massive kind of advocate of quality and media quality, but crucially making it actionable for clients. And so I'd be curious, where are you seeing kind of the highest levels of adoption of, high attention marketplaces? And are there any kind of results or case studies that you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing high adoption in all the regions globally. As I say, we've been able to work with our attention partners like Adelaide to be able to surface quality inventory, supply the advertisers that we work with at scale in all the markets that they need it to be present in. Making that easy to be tapped into, as I say, at a moment's notice is also critical. The US is a very scaled market, probably no surprise there. There is a great case study that I'd like to share today that is available on the website. So where we worked with a sports broadcaster, they had bought the rights to a particular game, and as anyone that works in that part of the industry knows, that's quite high table stakes. Like it's a lot of an investment for a broadcaster to put into acquiring those rights. So the big thing that they needed to deliver on was getting tune-in. So we worked with Adelaide and also Captify to build out a campaign that was tapping into the most susceptible audiences for viewing that fixture, delivering the scale across quality publishing partners as well. And we set that campaign live with a test and control approach a week prior to the game and on the day of as well. And what we could see from the results is that there was a 20% uplift in tune-in figures on the campaign that had the targeting and the high attention placements implemented on top of it. So I think it was a really good testament to the fact that attention does drive impact for our clients, but also a good shout out for the power of collaboration as well with Adelaide and Captify and PubMatic.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fascinating. And I remember that case study. I think what's fantastic about that is it was so clearly linked to an outcome that the brand cared about. The goal wasn't high attention because we could all pat ourselves on the back and say, well done, Adelaide said it was high attention, but what we really showed was higher tune-in, which is absolutely critical for what the brand wants to do. So, Anthony, perhaps I'll turn to you next. I'd be curious, so what kind of challenges are attention metrics solving for your business? I guess now, but also in the future.
I mean, yeah, the list is completely endless, but I think there's two main things that I would say attention metrics have been really critical to. I think the first thing is, as a news brand, we are often, there's a big challenge around oversensitivity with brand safety, especially things like purpose-led brands that are purporting to have, an objective around social justice or the environment, whatever it might be, and then they're directly avoiding the very journalism that's talking about those subjects. So attention metrics have really helped us build a narrative around the importance of of the quality attention that hard news actually receives, and how much of a fantastic opportunity it actually is for brands to sit in. And I know that from conversations with Adelaide that you, as we do, that you guys have a ton of evidence that suggests that actually it's a really, really fantastic environment. So that really helps us monetize that, really valuable quality journalism. The second thing is just the fact that it allows us to develop our products and services and experiences. It's really giving us the insight to understand what's working and what's not working, what delivers a positive quality experience for our readers. And it's really helped us, develop, these really fantastic immersive products. Earlier this year, the Telegraph launched a new product called Digital Hero, which is a fully immersive digital experience. And we're seeing, 3 minutes plus dwell time with that. And that is based on, all of the work that we put into that is based on the learnings that we've gathered from the attention metrics that we're kind of garnering on a daily basis. So that's been really fantastic. But the list goes on, really.
That makes complete sense. And Lee, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the same topic. Like, what is this solving for you today when you go to market as the FT? But also, like, in the future, how can you see this sort of developing from there?
Yeah, so I guess, the FT at its core is like focused on really quality, in-depth journalism. And I think, when we're looking at developing ads products, we're always like careful not to really detract from that mission, I guess. And so I think one of the interesting things that attention kind of is helping us solve is actually helping us show the value that we actually place on user experiences, uncluttered environments, and how that actually delivers for clients, as well as actually delivering, for our readers and the experience there. And so I think, in that sense, attention is a much more like nuanced kind of view, I guess, of like quality than we have had with like viewability or clicks. No one is, I think, looking at an ad for Salesforce, clicking on it and adding it to their shopping cart, right? But, we know from kind of eye tracking studies we've done, for instance, that like we actually are much better at like converting in view time into attention and then like kind of into brand recall than other sites, and that's really down to slower scroll speeds from kind of really engaged readership. And so that's what it's helping us do now. I think looking kind of beyond that, I think one of the interesting things for us is actually not how can we optimize to make our formats the highest attention possible, but actually how can we find the optimal attention we need to deliver the outcome for the client, right? And so that might be, for instance, what's the kind of cumulative attention we need to get from the right audience in the right context, as maybe part of an optimal reach and frequency strategy. Again, like in the kind of, I think, eye tracking studies we've done, we've seen really interesting stuff. Like, for instance, when we gave a client 100% share of voice and multiple ad exposures on site, that actually could double the expected brand recall for that client. So I think there's lots of kind of powerful things we can do there. And kind of, I think, mainly creating that shared language to communicate quality is kind of the big piece for us.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. I think your point around the right level of attention to drive a result is really important. I always say this to clients, like, if you want to buy the highest attention media, you'll buy halftime at the Super Bowl, right? But it might be a little cost prohibitive, perhaps a little reach prohibitive as well. Cool, so I want to switch gears a little bit, and a panel isn't fun unless we're talking about potentially slightly more controversial things. And so perhaps I'll start with you on this one, Nicky. There's lots of attention companies here. There's multiple different vendors across creative, across media, etc. But what I want to ask is whether you think that attention metrics can become a media quality currency. And if so, like, what is required of that media quality metric in order for that to happen?
So undeniably, it is an important metric, but I would call out for maybe standardization when it comes to use of that metric. So, for example, recently Ubiquity ran an eye tracking study where they saw that a 30-second TV ad gave the same amount of attention as 1.5 YouTube ads, 4.5 like outstream, in-feed Facebook ads. So there are nuances there, and I think that really needs to be taken into account for sure. And I would also say that, to echo a lot of what I've heard on the panel already, having a real sight on other things on the campaign, like congruence of placement for the advertising, clarity of messaging in the creative, making sure that creative is really strong is also really important.
Yeah, makes sense. And I guess I'll pass this one over to you, Anthony.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I think just to follow on from Nicky said, I think there's a real risk that if we focus too much on the ability of attention as an economy, then it takes all of the responsibility off every part. You know, the attention is one cog in a big machine, and there's a real risk that all of the responsibility goes on to delivering high quality attention to the publisher, and then the creative can go, oh, well, that's as long as it's getting high attention, I don't need to worry about what I'm doing. Every single component factor of a campaign has to be performing in order for a campaign to succeed. And I think there's a real risk that attention becomes fully accountable and other people kind of take their eye off the ball. And additionally, I think we really need to move away from this idea of silver bullet metrics. I know that Adelaide, I've seen a previous event where Adelaide talked about if you just focus on dwell time, for example, you end up just targeting octogenarians because they naturally scroll slower, right? It's about having a holistic approach to attention metrics and going, active dwell is one part of the story, and how am I building a holistic picture? This is a really cheesy example, but when we had our pre-panel discussion, got to think about it as like attention metrics are an ingredient in the cake. They're not the cake. You're trying to make a cake, and attention metrics are not the objective. They're part of how you get to your objective. So.
Couldn't agree more. And Lee, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to echo what the other panelists are saying. You know, I think for us as well, in particular, I think it's around what are the kind of making sure that the kind of metrics are evidence-based and robust, and I think that that everyone believes the factors that are in there are the right kind of factors to be considered, and that there's probably some kind of, as Nicky said, kind of standardization in industry and agreement around what those kind of factors are. So we're kind of all kind of working on that playing field.
Yeah, makes sense. I think we're all done for time. Thank you everyone for listening, and please give a round of applause to our panelists. Absolute pleasure.